Welcome to the Petersen's Bowhunting Podcast. All bowhunting, all the time. Now, here's your host, Editor Christian Berg.
All right, welcome to the Bowhunting Podcast. We're always thrilled that you've taken some time to be with us. And today, as we approach the middle of August, it is hard to believe, but hunting seasons are already open in some places out west if you're chasing antelope, and whitetail seasons aren't far behind. And I will be in the bluegrass state of Kentucky in just a couple more weeks chasing early season velvet whitetails. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to get on with my guest today. I've got Zachary, Estridge, and Wess from Palisades Bowhunting. These guys run an outfit in central Kentucky, and that is where I will be on Labor Day weekend, hopefully tagging a nice velvet trophy. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you.
You know, it's funny because there's a couple unique things about what you guys do that I want to discuss today. One, I've already mentioned, velvet whitetails. There's really only a handful of states where you can do that. And in the East, Kentucky is probably, one of the only and the best known places to do that. And I've enjoyed some velvet early season hunts in the past. And I'm looking forward to that. The other thing, I was checking out your website and I have never seen before. So you want to talk about unique. As far as I know, Palisades Bowhunting is the only outfitter website I have ever seen that said, we specialize in catering to saddle hunters. Never saw that before, but Wes, I know you have a tie-in with Trophy Line, and actually it's a Trophy Line hunt that will be on, so we will be saddle hunting. But before we even talk about early season whitetails, I want to throw it out to you guys and say, wow, I mean, are you aware of any other outfitters that are like, we cater to the saddle hunter?
Wes, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, so with the saddle hunting aspect of everything, our main goal is low pressure. And, with low pressure, we have, anywhere between 6 to maybe 7 hunts a year, with really no more than 4, maybe 5 people in camp. 4 is usually our max. And, I want to grow big, mature whitetail that aren't pressured. So when we have clients come in and hunters come in and they see these deer, they're seeing them as deer should be, not these highly pressured animals that, are going to spook in the instant. And then to add to that, that kind of low pressure, of course, we have our stands already kind of set up out there. So if people don't want to be in a saddle, that's still are kind of like that 50-50. But we're able to jump around on these same spots that we know are historically successful, without, having these deer being able to, look up pretty much in the same tree that maybe they caught someone in the past moving around. We can always, no matter what the wind is, no matter really kind of what the hunter wants to do, we're able to get in a lot of different trees and a lot of different just really kind of ambush points that allow us to be as successful as we have been. Now, this year is the first year that we are really, really promoting that mobile hunting, that saddle hunting aspect of things. But it's always been kind of our go-to thing in the past, so at least in the last 2 years. But this is our year that we're really coming in really hot with everything that we're able to as far as Trophy Line and being able to saddle hunt as much as we're going to this year.
Well, I love it because, serious whitetail hunters know it's like keeping that element of surprise is critical, right? And when you have those established stand sites, whether it's on your own personal, hunting area at home or an outfitter, I mean, honestly, I've hunted with lots of outfitters over the years, right? Some really good, some terrible, most, somewhere in between that. But there's no doubt that I've hunted with plenty of outfitters over the years where these stands, you're like, man, there's a lot of Snickers wrappers here. There's a lot of old scent wicks. This is not a fresh location. My odds of really having, the leg up on the bucks here is not good. You guys are doing the exact opposite. And just a little background on me, right? I was always one of those guys, you'd look at the saddle hunters and you'd just laugh and be like, that's never going to be me. Well, 2 years ago, I finally got in the saddle, killed my first buck on a DIY walk-in hunt in Montana. The very first week I hunted with the saddle. Last year, I killed 2 more deer out of the saddle, and I've become like that ex-smoker. You know how ex-smokers annoy all the smokers because they're the guy that's always telling you how bad that is for you and you should quit. I'm like that guy who was never going to hunt in the saddle, and now I use it. And I'm like, if you just get a saddle, you can hunt a different tree every time. And like Wes was saying, you can always play the wind, and it's so much more versatile. But with an outfit too, most or all of your customers are not necessarily going to be familiar with this. So maybe, Zach, and you want to touch on this, maybe you're actually, integrating some education and exposure where maybe you have somebody who comes into camp, they're not a saddle hunter. Over the course of the hunt, maybe they have an opportunity to get in a saddle. Maybe some people are doing their very first saddle sits right there during their hunt with you.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And so saddle hunting just went hand in hand with our kind of mission already of low pressure, and it works perfect. We're already set up for the guys who don't know anything about that. And so when they come to camp and they are then exposed to it, whether it's just through seeing it through videos or through experience it with Wes, as we offer some filming options. And so Wes could be filming out of a saddle at any point in time. That's how they get introduced. So from there, we hook them up to a tree just right in the yard, and 2 feet off the ground, they learn how to swing and they figure out what's going on, and hopefully we can then set them up with a trophy line saddle, and goes from there. So yes, that's entirely the plan and the hope, just to expose more people to it. And when it comes to hunting our own land, just being smart, able to hunt better and be more successful in the long run.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is, for me, and again, this is unusual because most outfitters, I'd say 80-90%, they do not want clients moving or setting any stands or going in anywhere other than, this is your stand. We will drop you off. We will pick you up. You will not go anywhere else. And of course, I'm not saying you want people moving around, but I always feel like as a pretty experienced bow hunter, when you go and travel to hunt with an outfitter, the best outfitters are the ones where it's like a partnership between you and the outfitter. And the goal for both of you is to kill a good deer and do it in a way that's not screwing it up, for other people as well. And
Exactly.
With you guys, employing the saddles, it gives you an opportunity, because I can't tell you how many times I've been on outfitted hunts, and it's like, man, if I could just move 50 or 60 yards in one direction or another, I really feel like that's going to get me where I need to be. And boy, a saddle's a great tool to do that.
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of touch up what you're saying there, I mean, we're kind of the same way as far as wanting to make sure people stay in that spot. A lot of people have a bad habit of getting down, going and checking their arrow. Maybe they can track their buck on their own. Fortunately and unfortunately, we've had a lot of success, but gosh darn it. Everybody who gets out of a stand and goes and tries to look for their deer, me included, in the past, it doesn't work out and we end up pushing deer too far for some reason. I think all of the Kentucky in our area, all the bucks all their lungs are pretty much 4 inches more forward because apparently, right behind that shoulder just seems to be always liver. But no, to your point, I mean, when we put them in that spot, that's where we want them to stay. We do a lot of planning while people are in camp, and we put a lot of it to the hunter. We want them to feel involved in the hunt. We want them to be like, hey, a lot of times I say, this is the wind. This is what this buck and this buck does in this area. I suggest that if we're going to hunt this spot, we need to be right here. What do you think? And a lot of people will have, we have a lot of good hunters come in camp and they have, great suggestions. It's like, hey, what about this? Is something maybe we haven't even thought of, or we were trying to, give it some time, or just him hawing around to figure out if we want to use like this gully or just this lower spot. And they'll go, well, what about this spot? Well, saddle hunting, one, allows us not to have 2 or 3 people to set up a new stand in that spot. We can, if it's a hunter that we can trust and he's very educated, or even she, we can get them out, drive them to that spot, and they're going to be able to get in, find a tree, get up there, and hunt. And last year during velvet season, we had that kind of opportunity. We needed to get towards their bedding because they just weren't coming out. It was really hot and they just weren't getting out where we wanted them to. So we closed in on the bedding. Now it didn't work for the September time, but it did work in November time. And I don't think it worked in September, mainly because there was 2 or 3 of us trying to put a stand up in there and cut limbs and stuff like that. But it sat there for a little bit, and then in November it worked. So I'm thinking, with the saddle implementation, something like that during early season is going to be just fire, because it's just that hang and bang, and you don't have to have a lot of people in there.
Yeah. And, I really feel like we need to back up because people are curious, I'm sure. And I am, Zach, I just want some of the basic, 911 on your outfit. You talked about the property and everything. I think you guys are located pretty close to Lancaster, Kentucky. And tell me about your farm, the areas that you hunt, how many acres you have, the deer population in your area, just all that basic stuff that anybody would want to know if they were thinking about coming in and possibly booking a hunt. I also wanted to say, by the way, I love the name Palisades Bowhunting because I see like behind you, you've got that PBH. Well, that's the abbreviation for Petersen's Bowhunting too. So it's like PBH and PBH are going to be like having a merger here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. It works out perfect. So basic background, we family owned land to start all this, and then it has just grown and grown from that to properties that we lease. And so we currently manage just over 1,000 acres of land, not all of it owned. From there, it's split up over a few properties, all along a 3-mile stretch of road. And we are very close to the Kentucky River. It all started originally with the Palisades name, which is tied to a horse breeding business that my mother has successfully run for 20 years. And so we build off of that. And the Palisades, if people don't know, the Kentucky River Palisades are the rock cliff walls that line the river on either side, in only a few sections of the Kentucky River. And we happen to live on one of those sections. I grew up on one of those sections. That's a backdrop to my life that I've been very used to. And so that's where the name comes from. How do we hunt it? Well, I guess let's talk. In 2001, probably about 2000, I started really like understanding I can add to what we have with managing the deer. Right? I killed my first deer in 7th grade. And then by the time we're in high school at that point in time, minerals are going on the ground. I'm learning about feeding. That happens and continues for another decade. There is a nice little hiatus in there where, because I'm the only one in my family who hunts. And so with that, it was either me or me and my friends. I go to college, I get married, I'm gone for a while, and no animals get killed for a nice chunk of time from like 2009 to 2014, which that only helped. And then in 2015, I came back for graduate school. I was living on the farm full time. I was there for until we began this in 2018. And then it was just, we went gung ho, did everything we could, from food plots to we're now on our 5th year of high protein feed that we're allowed to do during a certain time of the summer. And we keep that up for just their nutrition as well as their antlers. And our farm manager is able to manage all of that for us, which is wonderful. So that's the kind of the progression of this over the last 20 plus years that we've had the land. And we started killing big deer about in 2008, 2009. And then we just started racking them up. And in 2016, I guided one of my really good friends on a 150-inch velvet buck on opening day. And a few months later, another friend on a 180-inch buck in November. And I said, maybe we should do this for real. And so that's when, that was 2016. So 2017, we started. And that's the first year I met Wess. Tactics for hunting. Obviously, we want to keep it as low pressure as possible. So we have 7 food plots stretched out over the farm. Since we only have 3 to 4 people hunting usually at a time, this allows us to keep everybody well spread apart, and they don't feel like they're pressured in on each other and anything like that. You can be over food. If you want to be over food plot, you can be over water. We've had a lot of success killing deer over some of our natural spring water that's coming out of there in a few areas. You can be over a feeder. You can do it however you choose. And so we got options as long as it's with archery equipment, and we're doing it safely. That's the only thing we care about.
Yeah, obviously, as the name of your outfit would imply, you're bow hunting only. And Wes had touched on it earlier. You're really only running, maybe 25 to 30 at most hunters each year. And that's probably over about a total combined maybe 5 weeks, which isn't that much. I assume, it's not necessarily 5 consecutive weeks each year. And really, if you look at the Kentucky archery season, I think you guys, you obviously start, early September, and I think it runs into about February. So you're only really hunting a small fraction of the total, archery season in that state.
Yeah. And I mean, with the deer that we have now, I mean, and it's not because of me, but it's Zach's vision. But once we started in 2017, 2018, we really started to focus on age. Now, I can't tell, like we have a 130 inch minimum, and we're pretty strict on that, just because we're able to show them like, hey, this is a 130 inch deer. And, they come into camp, they see the deer on the wall, they see the dead heads we have, or, this is 130 inches. Obviously we can't expect them to be, perfect. I've been fortunate enough to guide at a lot of places, and I've been measuring deer for like 4 years now, so to be within 5-6 inches is something, but so it's been that measurement because I think it's harder for some people who maybe aren't educated or the uninitiated, to be able to see that, nice big brisket. Okay, this is a 3, maybe 4-year-old deer. But now, when we're talking about our deer that we have, I would say we're kind of heavy on the does. We always pressure people, hey, like, you can definitely shoot 2 does, but it's like there's the buck's there. I mean, like, you get some people, they want the meat, and it's like, okay, cool, but so I would say we're probably 2 does to every 1 buck, maybe 3. And then I know this year for a fact that we're going to have at least 5 deer touching the age of 5. And they're all, it's kind of tough right now. They've been a little sporadic, but we're looking at, 170s and 180s. I think this is going to be one of our biggest years as far as bucks. We just had a newcomer show up that we've never seen before. And gosh, I mean, he's probably 3 at 160, 170 inches. He's just a beast. And, but it's just been getting better every single year because we pay more attention to nutrition. We strategically put these plots in different areas. We have these established, mineral sites that, gosh, I mean, since Zach's been doing, these are 15, 16 years old, and it's just something that these deer are very used to. And, that low pressure is just very important to us. I rather do this almost as a hobby, and let it grow into maybe what it could become a lot bigger once we get more property. But to me, in 1,000 acres, and not all 1,000 is huntable. So we got to pick and choose. But within that property, having, like you said, 20 to 25 hunters within that 1,000 acres. Now to add more people, in my opinion, we need more property. So we're very comfortable with what we're doing, and it's starting to really show over the last 2.5 years where, people are shooting 150, 160, 170 inch bucks, or at least seeing the bucks. We've been very successful, and I love seeing new deer, especially this time of year.
Yeah, it's exciting. And, for somebody like myself, here in Pennsylvania, you talk about, having a handful of deer, 5 years old. That's just rarely going to happen for somebody, in the average hunting area. Very, very, very difficult here, where I don't own any hunting property. I have permission on some farms, but man, there's so much hunting pressure here. I think you said, Wes, you live in Michigan. You know what it's like. There's not a 5-year-old buck behind every tree in Michigan. So
if there's a 5-year-old buck around here, it's a county record at least.
So, to have an opportunity to travel and, be able to hunt deer of that caliber, that's why people, do go to places like Kentucky, which, is certainly not a sleeper state anymore. I think 10 years ago, we used to talk about Kentucky as a sleeper state, Zach, but that secret's long since out. Let's talk a little bit about the early season hunting specifically. And again, it just seems to be a theme with you guys. You do things a little bit differently than a lot of others. And specifically to the early season hunt, typically you think of that as an afternoon only hunt because a lot of those deer are killed on food plots, which you've talked about, or ag fields, bean fields, especially places where the deer like to come out into a bean field at, last hour of the day and try to set up an ambush there. But I was told that you guys actually do quite a bit of morning hunting during your early season hunt, which I've not heard about before. So, talk to me about that and how you effectively set up those morning sits.
If you want to go, Zach, you can hit it up.
Yeah. Well, I would just say, it kind of just builds off one of our last, and then I'm sure Wes will add to this, but if we're hunting in the morning, the last couple of years, it's just been hot as can be. We have to pick a site that, we have a means to get in there without being intrusive. And then second from that, you better get ready to get dressed in the field and have your clothing be completely scent free because we're pretty, we're very much into everything being scent free. And so there's a process for that. And so that certainly helps. The evening hunts are inevitably going to be more realistically your better hunt. But the morning, it certainly can be successful. With them liking to get to that food while it's still cool before it gets wicked hot. Wes, what would you add to that?
Yeah. So, I'm the one who kind of came into this with wanting to hunt mornings. And I think it was a lot of selfish reasons just because I just, I come from just, you got to hunt when you can hunt. If you can hunt, you better be in the woods, and I finally, after the last maybe 6 or 7 years, I've been able to have the opportunity to where I can selectively, choose when and how. But for some reason in Kentucky that I've noticed, one, the technology that we have, cell cams are a huge plus when you're in a place that you're able to use them. So those can really help us out in the mornings. But at the end of the day, it's a working farm, and that working farm starts, long before the sun rises and, long after the sun sets. So that adds a little bit of, protection to us, depending on where that wind's coming from. But we don't rely on those things. A lot of times I would say that if we hunt the morning, it's a spot that I have consistently watched a certain buck or a group of bucks or just deer in general come in really only in the daytime. I really love our property because it's very low lying. So those thermals continue to keep it cooler in a lot of those areas. So as they're going from, maybe their main food source in the middle of the night, and they're going to start heading back to bed, a lot of our food plots and our food plots and our feeders, they are stuck in these areas that are low lying. And in the mornings, even when, up top on the hilltop, it might be 85 degrees, it's 70 degrees down where you're hunting. And so strategically getting to those spots and having the access in and having the access out, in my opinion, we've had a little bit more success in the mornings in this early season than we do in the evenings. Now, if you look at it historically, it's probably 50-50. But, I've been successful there with a buck of mine that I shot back in 2018. It was a older 5-year-old that was never going to hit 130, but I shot him in the morning at 9:00. And there wasn't a deer on that food plot all the way up until 8:30. And it's a funny story. I text Zach, I was like, it's too hot. Come get me. I didn't know the property that well. And all of a sudden it's, 9:30 and it's freaking 85 degrees and they're just coming into our food plot to actually feed. And, I was able to get a shot on one. So, we are very careful if it's a spot that, no matter what the wind is doing, but if it's a spot, I know that those deer are always in until maybe 10 o'clock, we don't touch it, and it might come down to people drawing straws depending on the group and the dynamics of it, of like, all right, who's going out? Cause we only have 2 spots that we will feel comfortable somebody sitting in. And if anybody knows early season hunting, we always try to make them aware we are not just going to put you out in the morning because we want you out there. We want you out there in the morning because it's going to be successful. And if I don't put you out in the morning, it's because you're going to ruin your evening hunt or quite possibly the rest of the week. So we're very, very careful with those things. But yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, just the way our property sits and a lot of our food and our transition areas, they're all very low lying. And they're technically, anywhere between 5 to 8 degrees cooler than the rest of the farm. And it shows the deer really gravitate towards that 8 to maybe 10 o'clock in the morning time frame.
Yeah, I mean, it's great if you have places where you can get in and hunt effectively in the mornings, because as much as I like the early season hunts, probably the biggest drawback is that there can be quite a bit of downtime. You're almost sometimes feels like you're waiting around all day to go out there. And even, a lot of outfitters are like, okay, well, we want you to get you out there early, plenty of time to let the woods settle down. And it's so funny. Like, we could have a whole show just about letting the areas settle down. Right. Like, I don't really believe in that. I think you can get in your tree about 20 minutes before the deer are going to show up most of the time. But point is, they just want to, because they know you've been waiting around. So you're going to get you out there at 2 o'clock or whatever. Well, gosh, I mean, first week of September, it's still not getting dark until 8:30 or whatever. So you're like, okay, well, let's see. Realistically, the last 45 minutes is when I'm going to see all the deer. So I've got about 5 hours to sit in this tree and stare at my navel. And it's just the nature of the beast, because again, the early season, right? I mean, we're not talking about the rut here. There is no pattern other than bed to feed to bed that right. You're using on this hunt. I mean, that's pretty much the whole strategy. You're not rattling a buck in. You're not grunting a buck in. You're not using scent. You're doing nothing. You're waiting for these deer to get up and come to feed or go back to wherever they're going to lay down for the day.
And just to speak to the morning thing, I mean, it's the deer on our property are just very unpredictable, because I mean, just right now, before we got on here, I was looking at we have, cell cams out there. And, yesterday at 1 o'clock, it's 97 degrees and there's 4 deer. 2 of them are bucks, at the food plots, milling around. And, and that's what it says on the camera. So, I mean, it's just, I think we just are very good at our intel, paying attention to these wind, because these deer, if I look right now and I look historically, I can almost guarantee they're not coming there in the afternoon on a south wind. They're probably going to be there on a north wind more consistently. And, and that's what we go down to. I mean, it comes down to, I have this pamphlet and I look through and it's like, okay, I see this buck. We name them, give them names and stuff. But, I see this buck, every single time on a southwest wind, and he's only coming between this time frame on this spot. And, and we've been lucky enough that I think more so than not, all of our kills have been on intel like that. I'll ask Zach, I'm like, hey man, I think we need to have a person right here because the wind just switched and this buck has not been here since that last time we had that wind. And sure enough, sometimes it's funny. Sometimes, hunters will be like, nope, I don't want to go back to that spot. And it's like, well, I think you really should. And, and then they don't go. And sure enough, there he is, 170 incher, at 20 yards, could have been there. But, yeah.
Oh, that calls to mind another great Jedi mind trick of every whitetail guide in the country, which is, Christian, if you want to move, that's fine. You can go to another stand. I get it. You want to change the scenery. But I'm just telling you, if you don't go back to that stand tonight, I'm going to put Zachary in that stand. and he's going to kill your buck, and you're going to cry the whole way back to Pennsylvania about that. And so you're like, all right, Wes, 5 nights in a row I sat in that stand. I haven't seen a deer, but I'm going to go back because I can't stand the idea of Zach getting my buck. So there you have it.
Yep.
Let's shift gears for the, last segment of today's show and talk a little more product specific. I know you're excited. It's actually kind of ironic because you know what I was doing, because we've been talking saddle hunting right before this. And immediately after we're done with this, I'm going to finish, was putting together a tree stand because I have to go out this afternoon and hang a stand for a particular product that I'm dealing with for work here. And I'm going to use my new Venatic saddle from Trophy Line as my harness to put these sticks and this hang-on stand up. So I'll actually be using my saddle to put up a stand. But the Venatic is a brand new product from Trophy Line. I'm sure that both of you already have one and have probably used it. You probably had advanced, preview models and were hunting in them last fall. But, it's kind of a cool product, and I'm looking forward to using it. And just talk to me a little bit about the Venatic and what you think makes it, sort of one of the better options going out there for the saddle hunter.
So for the Venatic that just came out, the biggest thing is lightweight. It is insanely light. I think it is probably the lightest one on the market right now. I think at just over a pound. And then, we've been able to, another big aspect of it is we have this little tab. I mean, it's all about these, little extras, right? So we have this little tab, and right on the back part, it goes right up into your upper loops where you could put your pouches. And now, these people that walk in, sometimes, it can kind of, catch on your pants or something low. So now it brings that up to where you're almost really wearing nothing. And that's kind of, having a lot of people at the TAC events getting in them. They said, if I was not leaning back into this, and hanging here, I wouldn't know I had a saddle on, because they would stand up and you can't feel it. And another aspect of it is the rubber lining that we put on the waistband, which allows it to really stay up right where you want it. Now, our covert light and, the prime saddles and stuff, they stay there. But, sometimes you just got to move it around a couple inches or something to get it right. But once you put the Venatic on, it's just another piece of your clothing that really isn't moving at all. On top of that, it's got the no shine, and then it's got the, it's very quiet. And really, at the end of the day, it's just like you're not wearing anything. And it's incredibly comfortable. I think the way we are able to take the leg straps, and we brought them kind of down. So instead of, coming up into your upper groin and hip area, now we're coming across your thighs, and it kind of gives a little bit more comfortability and another aspect of customization for whoever's going to be sitting in it. But as far as an option, I mean, it's taking the weight out of what you're taking into the woods. We have our 4 sticks, like our pack that we have. That's, one of the lightest on the market, along with, our EDP. Our EDP's, super light. I mean, you're going in the woods at the end of the day with less than a 12-pound pack if you put everything in that backpack. And, it's just, in my opinion, even I have 10 acres I just bought here, and I have plans to use it literally all over the 10 acres just because of the versatility that you can do. And it's all about being mobile. It's like, of course we want people to buy, Trophy Line and support us in that, but it's all about being that mobile hunter. And that's what's important. Like you're talking about a tree stand. If you have a tree stand, you can still be mobile. Is it as easy and versatile? Maybe not, but it's a tool. So, even saddle hunters, sometimes we have to use those tools to get the job done, whether I'm in a ground blind or, I can jump up in a saddle or something like that. But it's all about being mobile. And as hunters, we kind of understand the importance of mobility. So.
Well, it is, it is a tool, and it's an important tool that I think every serious deer hunter should have. There's so many applications. I mean, I think the stereotype of the saddle hunter is this like DIY public land guy that's always going really far, and he wants to use a saddle because it sheds obviously a lot of weight. and he can really get in there and get away from, other hunters and things like that. But honestly, even if you're what I'll call a fat ass whitetail hunter, of which I fall firmly in that category. And so you basically are hunting, properties on permission, mostly private ground. You're typically maybe not going more than a quarter of a mile from the vehicle. Man, like last year, I got permission to hunt a new farm, and like you talked about it, stands, like it's an investment, like even what I'm going to go do this afternoon, right? I'm going to take those climbing sticks and that stand out there, and I'm probably going to spend, a couple of hours basically in the woods. By the time I get, the sticks on the tree, the stand set up, my lifeline on there, do some trimming, have that thing, however I feel that it needs to be, right, to be ready when I'll come back for the first time in October. And then to your point, you ain't going to move that. Like me personally, I'm always like, people ask me about taking down stands. I'm like, no, all my stands are one way. They go in and they never move. They'll grow into the tree, rust out, die. If it's a really good spot, I will replace the stand at some point. I don't take down stands. It's like enough work to put them up. I never take them down. Saddle, you get a new property. You're not just going to go in and start putting 7, 8 tree stands up. You don't know anything about that ground. The saddle is the perfect tool as you're getting your cameras up in the summer and you're walking that property for the first time. You're making those mental notes or you're marking it in your phone. Okay, these are 7 or 8 spots that I think might be pretty good. You just go in there and do a sit with your saddle, do some observation, see where the deer are coming, fine tune, your strategy in your own mind. Maybe at some point, because I'm like I'm not going to be only a saddle hunter. I'm not going to be one of those guys where it's like, oh, if you didn't kill it out of a saddle, it doesn't count. No, I'm still going to use stands, but that saddle is a great tool for learning a new property, for making an adjustment. Again, just like at the outfitter, sometimes you have a stand on your own lease or property, and you need to make that 50, 60 yard move. What are you going to do? Actually like pull that stand down and move it 50 yards? No, just come back tomorrow with your saddle. It's a great way to do that.
Yeah. And you can ask Zach. I mean, I've filmed him a couple of times and we've been up in the tree, and, if it's a tree that I'm familiar with, or it's something that I can actually, I can see kind of all the angles and everything, with my camera gear, I have an A7S III I'm bringing up with a mic. I got the big lens, I got extra stuff, and I got a ton of things. And even if I'm self-filming, I have my bow as well. I am very, very confident that I can be set up ready to kill a deer. Now, this doesn't include trimming if I need to, but up and ready to kill a deer and film him within 12 minutes. And that is not breaking a sweat. That is me just being very methodical. It's because, a lot of people, I'd like to touch on this, is a lot of people, when they think about saddle hunting, they're like, oh, there's so many ropes, there's this and there's that and all this kind of thing. I just want to get up and sit, and I understand that, like we said, it's a tool. But at the end of the day, like, how long do you take to shoot your bow and master your bow? Like how long are you taking that? And then you're studying these deer. Just take a little bit of time with this exceptional tool. And because just a little bit of time, I think, in my opinion, it's a 3 to 4 climb learning curve. If you can get 3 to 4 climbs in, then you're going to be very proficient. And just the more you do it, the quicker you're going to do it, or get up a tree and be ready, and not even break a sweat. And I've seen, 300-400 pound guys, and they just take their time getting up there and they're ready. I break a little sweat sometimes, but especially in September. But
I was going to say,
yeah.
We're all going to be sweating here on this hunt that's coming up. But I would say realistically, like I use a set of your double sticks.
Yep.
And realistically, I would say from the time that you get to the bottom of the tree, and if you're taking your time, like really taking your time, moving slow, no more than 15 minutes, probably 10, to be having all those sticks on the tree. You're obviously you're sort of putting the sticks on as you're going up. So you get those last stick. Then it's just a matter of cinching your platform, which I've got, attached to my saddle, and then stepping onto that, putting your tether on the tree, undoing the lineman's belt. There's really only 2 ropes, by the way. I mean, I'm sure there's more if you want to make it more complicated, but you have your lineman's belt and your tether, tethering in and then pulling up your bow, maybe putting a bow hook into the tree. And I use a little am steel like gear hanger to hang my pack. And there's not much to it. Like you say, it's more the learning curve than anything. It's the fear of the unknown that keeps us all away. And I was as guilty of that as anybody for a lot of years.
Yeah. I mean, Zach, he had the great idea because he's this business monster. We have sticks out there already, right? Like they went to hang-ons or whatever they are. They cost you $50. And a lot of people, well, I've got all this money invested in tree stands, and that's great. Use them. But if you have, let's say just my 10 acres here, I have, cheap sticks that I can, put up in trees that I know would be good to hunt out of. And I just leave them there and I take my platform with me. And if I get out there and for some reason the wind's swirling wrong, I know that I can go over here to this tree. I don't have to put my sticks up. I can climb right up, put my platform on, and I'm hunting, so that's always a great option too.
Oh, and another nice thing, again, you just think about all the advantages of a saddle. If you hunt in an area like I do, where there is a lot of other pressure from neighbors or even other people who have permission to hunt the same properties, I think most bow hunters are at least a little bit paranoid. I certainly am. I worry about who might be sitting in my stand on the days that I'm not there. I love just putting some sticks in a tree and leaving it at that. And they're like, okay, well, you can climb up there, but there's nothing to sit in, unless you have a saddle too. I don't know what you're going to do. It just makes me feel better about it.
Yeah. Zach, how many spots do you think, extra hunting spots do you think has added to Palisades just with the opportunity of saddle hunting?
Oh, well, I mean, if you say you take one farm that, has just say it had 10 stands on it to begin with. Well, now it can have 20 to 30 just based on the fact that there might be 10 tree stands and then there's going to be another 10 trees that I've gone and put stick in, which only takes a few minutes, not nearly the investment of hanging a whole tree stand. We can identify a tree, put 3 sticks in it and leave. And that's very quick. So yeah, it's turned over threefold. The number of hunting spots that we'll have for any given place.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, here's another thing. Again, as an outfitter, I'm left-handed, right? So all my stands are set up for a lefty. But typically, all the outfitted hunts I've done, I've probably shot way more deer facing the tree over the course of my life than facing away because they're set up for right-handers. You have sticks on a tree. Once I get up in the tree, I can put that platform anywhere I want around the circumference of that tree and be set up for how I want to set up the shot for myself,
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, just as outfitters, I mean, I think the one thing that we kind of look out for the most is, we'll go out there and try to pick trees. I'm like, okay, that'd be a good saddle tree just to get our eyes on it so that, and we'll mark it on our maps. And if we have to, we'll get up there in a saddle and we'll kind of do some trimming and stuff. So we have these extra spots that if we don't have sticks in them already or have them set up for a saddle, then, that's just something that someone can go climb real quick because, as outfitters, we want to be as quick and as efficient as possible. And if we can get in there even quieter, so we have different stick sets, like we have the, trophy line stick sets already out there. We have platforms there. So really all you do is have your saddle and just get up there, and I, we've noticed a lot more people.
Oh, that's luxury, man. That's making saddle hunting super easy.
Yeah. And I mean, with having, people coming in with that don't know saddle hunting, if I can get them to where they're comfortable sitting in the saddle, then that's a little bit easier of a transition from going from never saddle hunting to actually saddle hunting, because now all they gotta do is climb sticks, which they're used to, and they know their feet have to go on a platform. They just have to know that they go up there with their lineman rope and then they put their tether up and things like that. It takes a little bit more out of the thinking process.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, I am really looking forward to the hunt. You never really know, Zach, what you're going to get on these early season hunts. I mean, the weather, can definitely play with you. You can get, a ridiculous heat wave. I remember one year I was down there was like the remnants of a hurricane went through, and it was like a monsoon. I've also seen it. There was the first time I ever went down to Kentucky. Over the course of like the 5 days that I was there were probably like over 20 big buck killed by the clients at this outfit that I was with, which was a bigger outfit with multiple camps. But like I told the outfitter that week, I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. I've hunted Great Places Peak Rut and not seen this many giant deer getting killed. So like it can literally be some of the best hunting of the year when you have, multiple big mature whitetails all doing what they're supposed to be doing. When they're patterned that well, just think about it. Again, you guys talked about your intel and how carefully you fine-tuned your stand locations. When like you get 5 big deer like that to all go to the spot where they're supposed to go on the same night, and you have guys in the tree, you have a pile of antler inches in your front yard that you won't duplicate, for years. So we're bow hunters. We're paranoid. I said earlier, we're also all optimists. Because I always say you have to be kind of an optimist to be a bow hunter, because on any given day, your odds of success aren't high. But right now, 3 weeks out, I'm thinking like, guys, we're going to experience that magic, Zach. You've got it tuned in. All the stars are going to align. And like, I feel bad for your clients later in the season because we're killing all your giants right there. First 2-3 days of the season.
Man, you're putting a lot of pressure now.
We're going to make it happen. And yeah, all the stars are going to align. We're going to finally get some cool temperatures. Last few years, it's just been scorching hot. We get one cool day, and biggest thing, we keep it low pressure. So there's only going to be a few guys in camp, and you're going to have it all laid out in front of you. And we'll use our intel and every tool we have to make it happen.
Well, I know one thing. If it doesn't work out, I'm not going to be able to blame the guy who sat the same tree last week, because I'm going to have been the first guy. Yeah. And the other thing is, I hate the cold. I talk about that all the time. That's like I'm a broken record on that. So the nice thing about the early season hunt is a nice cool day in first week of September is like a 73-degree day with low humidity. That's cool. I'm like, that's my kind of cold day, baby.
All right. And I'm excited too, because it's on the 3rd this year. So as far as I've been starting with Palisades, this would be the earliest time that I've been able to see deer get killed. As far as in Kentucky, we did some success where we had some velvet bucks killed in that. But my dad, when he bought a hunt there, and he shot a buck, and it was just out of velvet, and he shot it on the 5th or the 6th. So, I think we're going to have, at least 3 solid days where there is almost guaranteed that they're going to have velvet on their antlers. And then after, on the 4th day, maybe the end of the 3rd day, we're going to be like, let's hope to have, velvet, because they usually right around between the 5th and the 8th, I've really noticed that they'll start getting that velvet off there.
I'm sure we'll see it when we're in camp. You have particular bucks that you're familiar with. And if you've got the cellular cameras out there each day, you're going to have picture, here's Curly last night in velvet. And then Curly was on the food plot this morning, and he's hard antlered. So it's just the way that it's going to go each day. Zachary, I'm going to let you take us out. Tell people how they can learn more about Palisades Bowhunting, get connected with you, either on your website, social media, etc.
Yeah, feel free to contact us through Instagram, Facebook, easiest way, social media, easiest way to talk to us. Website has your general information that you'll need. It's not easy to get on the list at this point. We're very blessed to have, I think everybody hunting this year has hunted with us before. They're return hunters, and if they're not a return hunter, then they're a referral of somebody who has hunted with us. So we're blessed to get lots of requests, and we're not going to break our strategy of keeping it low pressure. So you may have to wait a season or 2 to get with us, but we'll do our best to make it happen. But be nice about it. Ask nicely. And we'll but yeah, Instagram, Facebook, send us a message. Our phone numbers are on the website. You can text us directly anytime. And yeah, we're always here for you.
Well, good. There you have it, folks. Get on the list. And the good news is, while you're waiting for your name to come up, you don't have to accumulate any points, because Kentucky is an over-the-counter state for non-resident whitetail tags. So at least you don't have to worry about being able to get that license when Zachary finally rolls out the red carpet for you. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Very appreciative of your time. Again, I'm looking forward to the hunt, looking forward to sitting in that fanatic, and hopefully we can be, some of the first kids in our neighborhood to say, we killed it out of the fanatic, and we'll be social media superstars.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I'll probably be the one filming it too.
Beautiful. Look forward to it. See you guys soon.
Thanks for downloading the Petersen's Bowhunting Podcast. All bow hunting, all the time. Pick up the latest issue of Petersen's Bowhunting magazine on your local newsstand, or connect with us online at bowhuntingmag.com.